All right, so welcome to another deep dive. And today, uh, we are going way back
Way back.
into prehistory, you and I.
That's right.
And we're going to be looking at some giant squirrels.
Got it.
You shared some really fascinating research with me about a newly discovered species in Thailand.
Yes.
And we've even got excerpts from the actual scientific paper itself.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So
So,
this is
it's a pretty amazing discovery.
get into it.
Not just a new species, but we're talking a giant species.
Yeah.
And get this, it lived alongside early humans.
Whoa, wait, hold on. So you're telling me that, like, humans
So the Pleistocene?
were around when these things were, like,
Yeah.
sliding through the air? And I'm trying to, like, picture that in my head, like a Stone Age family just, like, looking up in awe as, like, a giant squirrel the size of, like, their toddler just, like, sails by.
You know, it's definitely a very vivid image. And it really kind of speaks to why this is such a significant discovery. The fossils themselves were actually found in a place called Crystal Cave.
Okay.
And that cave is in a region of Thailand that's known as kind of a paleontological treasure trove. It's not just the number of fossils they find there, but the variety and the quality of the preservation. I mean, we're talking incredibly detailed remains offering a glimpse into this, lost world.
So you're saying that Crystal Cave is like a time capsule,
Yes.
perfectly preserving this ancient ecosystem.
Pretty much.
That's incredible. Oh, and I remember in the paper, it mentioned the squirrel's scientific name
Yes,
is Belomys thamkaewi.
that's right.
Is that name, does that have something to do with where it was found?
Absolutely. Thamkaewi directly references Thamkai, the Thai name for Crystal Cave.
Oh, okay.
It's actually very common in paleontology to incorporate details of the discovery into the species name.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like a permanent, like, tribute to the site. So how do they figure out how old these fossils are?
Right.
I remember the paper mentioned something called, like, biochronology.
Yeah, so biochronology,
With it.
it's a really clever technique.
Very high tech.
It is. So imagine you're trying to piece together a timeline of events.
Okay.
But instead of like written records, you've got fossils. Biochronology is basically comparing the fossils found at Crystal Cave with fossils from other sites
Okay.
that have well-established dates. Think of it like using known landmarks to map out a route.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So by matching up these fossils, they can get a pretty, like, precise idea
Exactly.
of when these squirrels were
Very
actually
exact.
gliding around.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. But, okay, let's get at the good stuff.
Okay.
How giant are we talking here?
Okay.
Like, was it a squirrel just wearing, like, a puffy winter coat? Or was it something truly massive?
No, definitely more than just a fluffy coat.
Okay.
The paper estimates that B. thamkaewi weighed around 325 grams, while its modern relative, Belomys pearsonii, is only about 217 grams.
Okay, so that's a big difference.
Yeah, that's a considerable difference.
Wow, like 50% heavier.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that is officially a giant squirrel.
that's a giant squirrel.
I guess it makes sense they needed those gliding membranes.
Right.
The paper goes into a lot of detail about the teeth of B. thamkaewi.
Yes.
Do they just have a thing for, like, ancient squirrel dentistry?
Yeah.
Or is there more to it?
They for like a gold mine of information for paleontologists.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they can tell us so much about an animal's diet, lifestyle, and even evolutionary relationships.
So what do B. thamkaewi's teeth
Right.
actually reveal about this prehistoric glider? What are the dental details?
They use some seriously high-powered tools, including scanning electron microscopy,
Wow.
to examine the teeth in incredible detail.
Okay.
What they found is that B. thamkaewi's teeth share many similarities with its modern relatives, suggesting a similar diet and arboreal lifestyle. So they were likely munching on nuts, seeds, and fruits
Okay.
while navigating the forest canopy.
So basically a giant version of the cute and fluffy squirrels we see today.
Pretty much.
Just soaring between trees instead of, like, scampering up them.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But here's where I get a little confused.
Okay.
The paper mentions that B. thamkaewi and B. pearsonii are never found in the same fossil deposits.
Right.
Why is that? Were they avoiding each other in prehistoric Thailand?
Well, that is one of the big questions this discovery raises.
Oh, okay.
It gets to the heart of paleoecological mysteries.
I'm all ears. What are the leading theories on why these two squirrel species seem to have kept their distance?
One possibility is competitive exclusion. Perhaps B. thamkaewi being larger outcompeted B. pearsonii for resources in certain areas?
Like a prehistoric squirrel turf war.
Imagine them vying for the best nut-bearing trees or prime nesting spots in the canopy.
Okay, that's awesome. But the paper did mention another possibility, right? Something about different habitats.
Exactly. The other hypothesis is habitat partitioning.
Okay.
Even within the same region, they may have preferred slightly different environments. B. thamkaewi might have favored denser forests, while B. pearsonii adapted to more open woodlands.
Okay.
This would have naturally led them to occupy separate areas, even if their ranges overlapped.
So even though the climate was changing, they may have carved out their own ecological niches to avoid direct competition.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But without a time machine, I guess we can only speculate about their interactions.
For now,
For
yes.
now.
But who knows what future discoveries might reveal. Every new fossil has the potential to add another piece to the puzzle. Speaking of which, there's another intriguing detail in the paper. I think you'll find this fascinating.
Yeah.
It seems that B. pearsonii wasn't always confined to its current range. They found its fossils further south in Thailand than where it lives today. And that brings us to another major player in this story. The Pleistocene climate.
Okay, this is getting good.
Yeah.
Climate change, giant squirrels on the move.
So during the Pleistocene, the world experienced significant climate fluctuations, including periods of intense cold, known as glacial periods.
So we're talking ice ages.
Yeah.
Woolly mammoths roaming around, glaciers creeping down from the poles.
Yeah. Maybe not quite mammoths and glaciers in Thailand,
Okay.
but it was definitely a time of dramatic environmental change.
Okay.
The paper actually mentions a mean temperature drop of about 6 degrees Celsius
Wow.
during the last glacial maximum.
Okay.
And that's not all. They also talk about a downward shift of vegetation zones.
Okay, downward shift sounds intriguing, but a bit technical.
Sure.
Can you break that down for me? What does that mean for the landscape?
Yeah.
How would it affect the squirrels?
Imagine you have a mountain slope,
Okay.
and at the base, you have your typical lush tropical rainforest.
Okay.
As you go higher, the temperature cools, and you transition to different forest types.
Okay.
You get temperate forests, coniferous forests, and eventually alpine meadows at the very top.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Yeah.
It's like climbing through distinct layers of forest as you go up the mountain.
Exactly.
So what happens when the temperature drops significantly, like during a glacial period?
Those temperature bands essentially shift downwards.
Okay.
The tropical rainforest at the base might become suitable for a temperate forest and so on.
Uh-huh.
It's like each forest type is moving down the mountain to find its ideal temperature range.
I see. So the entire landscape is transforming as the climate changes.
Exactly.
No wonder those squirrels were on the move.
Right.
But if B. pearsonii was pushed south by the cooling temperatures, why didn't we find it hanging out with B. thamkaewi?
Right.
Weren't they both in Thailand at the same time?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And it circles back to those competing theories we discussed earlier.
Okay.
Competitive exclusion versus habitat partitioning.
Right.
Perhaps even with the climate shifts, they managed to avoid each other
Okay.
by specializing in different resources or microhabitats.
So even with the climate changing and vegetation zones shifting, these squirrels were masters of adaptation, finding ways to thrive in a dynamic environment.
That's the picture that's emerging, and it's a testament to the resilience and adaptability of life on Earth. But it's also a reminder that there's still so much we don't know about the intricate web of interactions that shaped ancient ecosystems.
Well, consider my curiosity officially piqued. This is turning into a real detective story.
It is.
And I can't wait to see what other clues we uncover as we continue our deep dive into this world.
It really does. And the mystery just gets deeper.
Oh.
Remember how we were talking about those B. pearsonii fossils being found south of the Krat Isthmus?
Yeah, that narrow strip of land connecting the Malay Peninsula to mainland Thailand.
Right, right.
What about it?
Well, think of that Krat Isthmus as like a line in the sand, biogeographically speaking. It separates the plants and animals of the Malay Peninsula from mainland Southeast Asia.
Right.
Finding B. pearsonii south of that line suggests that at some point during the Pleistocene, conditions allowed them to actually cross over.
So the isthmus wasn't as much of a barrier back then as it is now.
Yeah, it seems that way.
That's wild. That really paints a picture of how dynamic things were during the Pleistocene.
Yeah.
Species on the move, adapting, finding new paths. It makes you wonder if B. thamkaewi made any similar journeys.
It's certainly a possibility.
Yeah.
But to really understand these movements, we have to keep in mind the paper also mentioned this fascinating detail, the distinction between Belomys and Trogopterus.
Wait, back up a sec. Trogopterus, is that another kind of flying squirrel?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And for a while, scientists actually grouped Belomys and Trogopterus together. But the authors of this paper, they argue that they're distinct based on differences in their teeth and size ratios.
Seriously, you're really driving home how much we can learn from teeth.
Oh, yeah.
But I got to ask, for someone who's not a paleontologist, what kind of differences are we talking about here? How can you tell a Belomys tooth from a Trogopterus tooth?
Think proportions. Trogopterus has a much larger premolar to molar ratio compared to Belomys. Also, their third lower molars are distinct.
Okay.
In Trogopterus, it's similar in size and shape to the second lower molar.
Okay.
But in Belomys, it's noticeably larger and more triangular.
Wow.
So it's subtle, but these differences in tooth structure actually point to different evolutionary paths.
It's mind-blowing how much information is packed into something as small as a tooth. Kind of like a biological blueprint revealing millions of years of evolution.
I know, it's amazing.
The paper even compares B. thamkaewi to another fossil species, Belomys parapearsoni, found in China.
Yes.
Any interesting connections there?
There is. The authors suggest that those Chinese fossils, initially identified as Belomys, might actually belong to Trogopterus. This highlights how science is a constantly evolving process.
Yeah.
New discoveries can challenge old assumptions and refine our understanding of the past.
It's like a giant puzzle.
Yeah.
With each new fossil, we're adding another piece, revealing a clearer picture.
That's right.
But even with all this detail, there's still so much we don't know about B. thamkaewi.
True.
Like, what was its lifespan? Did it have any predators? Did it hibernate during those colder periods?
All fantastic questions.
Yeah.
And they really get to the heart of why this discovery is so exciting. It's not just about one new species. It's about opening up a whole new avenue of research.
You're right.
Yeah.
We've got this incredible snapshot of B. thamkaewi from its fossils.
Right.
But there's so much more to learn about how it interacted with its environment, other species, and the changing climate.
Yeah.
It's like we've just scratched the surface of a prehistoric mystery.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's what makes paleontology so captivating. It's about piecing together these fragments of evidence to reconstruct lost worlds and understand the intricate tapestry of life that existed millions of years ago.
Okay, so speaking of piecing things together, let's go back to the Pleistocene climate for a moment.
Okay.
We talked about the temperature drop and the downward shift in vegetation zones.
Right.
But what did those changes actually look like? Can you paint a picture for me and for our listener of what Thailand might have been like during that time?
So imagine a Thailand where cooler temperatures prevailed, and the landscape was a mosaic of diverse habitats. The lush tropical rainforests we associate with Thailand today might have been restricted to lower elevations, while higher areas were covered in temperate forests, with trees shedding their leaves in the cooler seasons. And then further up, you might have encountered coniferous forests with their evergreen needles adapted to withstand colder conditions.
So it was a more diverse landscape than what we see today, almost like different parts of the world squeezed into one region.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that diversity would have supported a really wide array of animals.
Yeah.
Alongside our giant flying squirrel, you might have encountered primates swinging through the trees. Ancient elephants browsing on foliage.
Wow.
And perhaps even early humans navigating this dynamic environment.
It sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Like stepping into a time machine and witnessing a whole new world.
That would have been amazing.
But with all these changes happening, the Trogopterus being more permeable than it is now, did other species besides B. pearsonii make their way across?
Oh, it's highly likely. Remember, the Trogopterus has acted as a filter throughout history, influencing the distribution of species between the mainland and the Malay Peninsula.
Right.
During periods of climate change, when habitats shifted and sea levels fluctuated, this filter may have become less effective, allowing for greater movement of animals across the region.
So we could have had a whole prehistoric migration happening across the Trogopterus.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a fascinating thought, and it makes me wonder about the impact of all this movement and climate change on B. thamkaewi.
Right.
Did these changes contribute to its extinction?
That's a question that researchers are really trying to understand.
Okay.
Climate change can be a major driver of extinction, either directly by altering habitats beyond a species' tolerance or indirectly by changing the dynamics of competition and predation.
Yeah.
So it's possible that the same climate shifts that allowed B. pearsonii to expand its range might have put pressure on B. thamkaewi, perhaps by altering its food sources or introducing new competitors.
So while some species thrived in the face of these changes, others might have struggled to adapt.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that even in a world of giant flying squirrels, survival wasn't guaranteed.
That's right.
It makes you appreciate how fragile ecosystems can be and how even seemingly small changes can have cascading effects.
Absolutely, and that's why studying the past is so important. It provides a window into how life on Earth has responded to environmental change, offering valuable lessons for understanding and mitigating the impacts of climate change today.
That's a great point. We're not just studying the past, we're learning from it too.
Exactly.
But before we get too philosophical, there's something I've been wondering about since we started talking about B. thamkaewi.
Okay.
The paper mentions it was larger than its modern relative.
Yes.
But why was it bigger? Is there an evolutionary advantage to being a giant flying squirrel?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's no easy answer.
Okay.
Evolution is a complex process.
Right.
And there are often multiple factors at play.
Sure.
One possibility is that larger size provided an advantage in foraging or competition for resources.
So maybe those bigger squirrels could reach more food sources or defend their territory more effectively. It's like the survival of the fluffiest.
Precisely. Another possibility is that larger size helped with thermoregulation, especially during colder periods.
Okay.
Remember, we're talking about a time of significant climate fluctuations, so being able to conserve body heat would have been crucial.
Yeah, that makes sense. A bigger squirrel would have a lower surface area to volume ratio.
Right.
Meaning you would lose heat less quickly.
Yeah.
It's like having a built-in fur coat.
Yeah.
But weren't there any drawbacks to being bigger?
Sure.
It seems like it would make gliding more difficult or maybe make them more vulnerable to predators.
You're right, there are always trade-offs in evolution.
Yeah.
Larger size might have made B. thamkaewi less agile in the air.
Right.
Or a more tempting target for predators.
Okay.
But overall, the benefits of being bigger must have outweighed the costs, at least for a while.
So it was a delicate balancing act.
It was.
Weighing the pros and cons of size
in
a constantly changing environment.
That's right.
It makes you wonder about the selective pressures that shaped the evolution of B. thamkaewi and how those pressures might have shifted over time.
It's a fascinating puzzle, and one that paleontologists are really eager to solve. By studying the anatomy, ecology, and evolutionary relationships of B. thamkaewi, we can gain a deeper understanding of how this remarkable creature thrived in a world so different from our own.
It's incredible to think that these giant squirrels were once soaring through the forests of prehistoric Thailand.
I know, it's amazing.
Navigating a world of changing climates, shifting landscapes, and intense competition.
Yeah.
Their story is a testament to the adaptability and resilience of life.
It is.
And reminds us that even in the face of extinction, there's always something new to discover.
Always something new.
Always another chapter in the grand narrative of life on Earth.
Absolutely.
It's amazing to think about all this. So we've been talking about these ancient squirrels and their environment. I keep thinking about how much detective work goes into paleontology.
It is.
It's like you're piecing together this puzzle, but the pieces are scattered across millions of years.
That's a great analogy. And just like any good detective story, there are always more clues to uncover.
Oh, yeah.
Remember how that paper mentioned that the B. pearsonii fossils were found south of its current range?
Yeah, south of the Isthmus, which we were just talking about.
Exactly.
I'm guessing there's more to that story.
There is. It's not just about the movement of B. pearsonii. It's about what that movement tells us about the bigger picture of Southeast Asian biogeography.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the bigger picture here?
Think of Southeast Asia as like this giant jigsaw puzzle of different ecosystems, each with its own unique set of species. And that cryoisthmus, that narrow strip of land, has acted as a barrier, influencing how those pieces fit together.
So the isthmus is like a dividing line. Separating different groups of plants and animals.
Exactly. But during the Pleistocene, things weren't so clear-cut. Remember those climate fluctuations we talked about? Well, they caused sea levels to rise and fall. Sometimes connecting and sometimes separating the mainland from the Malay Peninsula.
So the barrier wasn't always a barrier. That explains how pearsonii might have crossed over.
Yeah.
But what about other species? Was there a grand mixing of species during those times?
It's certainly a possibility. Imagine a time when the Kra Isthmus was totally submerged.
Wow.
Creating a continuous land bridge between the mainland and the peninsula.
Yeah.
Animals could move freely, expanding their ranges and mingling with species they might never have encountered otherwise.
Yeah, that's a mind-blowing image.
I know, right?
A prehistoric melting pot of Southeast Asian species.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about the ripple effects of those interactions.
Absolutely.
How they might have shaped the evolution of entire ecosystems.
Exactly. And that's what makes studying ancient biogeography so fascinating.
Mm.
It's not just about mapping where species lived, but understanding those forces that shape those distributions, the connections and barriers that influence the evolution of life itself.
It's like uncovering a hidden network, a web of relationships stretching across millions of years.
Absolutely.
And with each new fossil discovery, we're adding another thread to that web, revealing a richer and more complex tapestry of life than we ever imagined.
Exactly. And it's a tapestry that's still being woven. Even today, that Kra Isthmus continues to influence the distribution of species.
Right.
And with the added pressures of human activity and climate change,
right,
understanding these dynamics is more important than ever.
Yeah, it's a reminder that the past isn't just history.
Right.
It's a key to understanding the present.
Exactly.
And shaping the future.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of thamkaewi.
It has been a fascinating journey.
It really has. From the discovery of this remarkable species to the intricacies of Pleistocene ecosystems and the complexities of biogeography,
it's amazing.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
And to our listener, if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, there's a whole universe of knowledge waiting to be explored. So don't hesitate to delve deeper into the world of paleontology, biogeography, or even just the fascinating lives of squirrels.
Right.
You never know what incredible discoveries await you.
And who knows, maybe someday you'll be the one uncovering the next giant flying squirrel fossil.
Yeah.
Adding another piece to that puzzle of life's grand history.
That's a great thought to end on. Until next time, happy deep diving.